I used to have to sit at my desk for 8 hours a day, often with nothing to do, and it used to drive me fucking crazy. And it just got me thinking about today, like, why do we still have an 8 hour workday? Like, it just seems like one of those things like daylight savings time or the electoral college that I just think is completely outdated. I mean, I just remember just like, what am I doing? I literally have nothing to do. Why can't I leave? I mean, if you think about it, like nowhere else in the animal kingdom, our species doing this. Like, think about a lion. A lion doesn't have to like clock in to get food. It hunts when it needs to hunt. It gets the animal and then it rests. The rest of the time, it's like conserving energy. I mean, I think about like when I was in grad school, I had to, write my PhD and I had about a year to do it. And no one was watching me. Like, no one was saying like, hey, you need to clock in and do this. Like, you just had to like produce it. And it's similar to like business. Like, do you care if the person who made your iPhone, worked on it every day for 8 hours? You don't give a shit. You just care about the iPhone. And I think like we're misvaluing what we place our emphasis and metrics on. Like, who gives a shit if you work for 8 hours? Like, what did you produce? Obviously, there's some caveats like, hospital staff needs to work certain shifts to be available, policemen, things like that. But for a lot of like knowledge work, I think it's completely irrelevant. Look, my MacBook, like I said, any piece of software or sales, like no one cares how many hours a day you worked in sales. They just care about how many like sales you got, how much money you brought in. Like, am I the only one who gets just pissed off by this? Because it's just like, what are we doing? I felt great when I was working on my PhD in the sense that like I had a very structured routine. I would get up early in the morning, I would make my coffee, and then I would work in 1 hour blocks, like 1 hour on, 15 minutes off, I think it was, for 4 hours, and then I was done. And, that kind of lines up. That's another reason why I think the 8 hour workday is fucking bullshit, is that, humans can't really like do meaningful work after about like 3 to 4 hours. Cal Newport talks about this in his book, Deep Work, which is a great book. But, my brain is spent after 4 hours of like really intense work. Not only that, but at least for me, because I'm a morning person, after 2 o'clock, I'm not really doing anything like meaningful or of value. When I was a therapist, those sessions later on in the afternoon, they were definitely harder. Just because, the gas has been spent. I get up at between 5 and 6 every day, just naturally. And so, I mean, like 8 hours, like after that 4 hours, what are you doing? You're like checking emails. Maybe you're going to some fucking stupid meeting that could be an email, which don't get me started on meetings. You're bullshitting with your coworkers. But I mean, how much productivity are you really getting after 4 hours? Similar now, my metrics are not how much I work. My metrics are what I produce. And, I use, SMART goals, which if you don't know, check it out. It's an acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, related, time bound. So what that means is like, there's a big difference in saying I'm going to work out today versus I'm going to walk for 5 minutes a day, 5 times a week. So it's very specific. Anywho, so my goals right now are to make one piece of content for my app and then make one YouTube video. And then I'm done. And it's, it's a 8:18 right now. I'll wrap this up in about 10 or 15 minutes. It'll take me about 15, 20 minutes to edit. And then I have the rest of my day. And it feels good. Not versus like if I just had to like sit there and keep making videos all day for 8 hours, like I would burn out. And I've burnt out before. There's no like scientific evidence to say like this is the optimal amount of time for humans to work. I think there's some research to suggest that like having flexible schedules, having, 4-day work weeks, increases overall well-being. I know for me, having a 4-day work week is much more enjoyable than having a 5-day work week, but I digress. So if you have a job right now, obviously you're under the confines of your employer, but hopefully, I encourage you to question this, because I think, like I said, it's one of these antiquated systems that we just kind of go along with. We have to clock in, look busy. That's another thing that like drove me crazy about working in the VA. Like, and I think that maybe it applies to a lot of employers, is like employers just value like optics over productivity. Like, at least at the VA, it was just about being seen there, being perceived as being productive, even though like a lot of people aren't doing shit. Like I had colleagues too that had like one patient that day and they just like completely fucked off and we're getting paid for it. Like it's just like stupid. You know, the optics of like appearing busy, being productive, it's just so fucking dumb. And you know, again, one of the reasons why I left my job is just because like I am so fucking tired of playing this fucking game. Like, you know, I don't have anything to do. You know, I don't have anything to do. What the fuck are we doing? I think if you can start making your own money and working for yourself, obviously the grass is always greener on the other side. You know, you sacrifice security for independence. However, though, I would say security can be somewhat of an illusion at an employer because, again, they'll drop you as soon as they don't need you or as soon as it's cheaper to get rid of you versus keep you. So, yeah, I think security is an illusion. So trying to make money for yourself, you know, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I'm not here to impose my values. I think for me, and I'm digressing here a little bit, I am trying to break out of being indoctrinated to be a good worker because it just pisses me off. You know, we are, I think, conditioned in the school system from, you know, day one just to be a good worker instead of thinking for yourself and asking questions why. I was a really annoying student and a really annoying probably child to my parents because I was always just asking why. Why? And now I'm asking, you know, why 8 hours? And I gotta say, you know, listen, like I've said in other videos, I could eat shit on this move to quit my job and start to make my own money. But I gotta say, it is very nice to have, you know, 8 hours of freedom a day after I work for 4 hours. You know, there's been times in my life too where I've misvalued, you know, perceived productivity versus actual tangible results of success. I remember studying for the GRE, which is like a graduate exam or whatever, studying for the GRE for grad school. And I studied for about a year. And, you know, I would just do time-based. I would study for X amount of time per day, but it wasn't efficient and I didn't do well on the first time around. And, you know, I probably would have done better off by like taking more practice tests and having objective results of my output versus just saying, you know, I studied an hour a day, so I'm good. It's just like, you know, I went to work. I worked for 5 hours today. I'm good. Like it's really easy to bullshit yourself into saying like you're being productive and you're doing like activity is not productivity. That's a great quote. I didn't make that, but it's so true. Activity is not productivity. And I deluded myself back in the day that my activity of sitting down there and quote unquote studying for an hour was being productive, and it was not. And so, you know, I encourage you all to think about, are there any activities right now in your life where you're deluding yourself you're actually being productive? I think Cal Newport talks about this in his book too, but it's like, you know, like reading emails is not productive. It's not a high leverage activity, or things are like making to-do lists and things like that. It's usually the activity that you don't want to do and you're feeling resistance towards it. And, you know, it's also why I think making these videos, both for my YouTube channel and my app, is the most important thing, because I feel uncomfortable doing it every day. I feel resistant towards it. You know, maybe it's, you know, because you're putting yourself out there, or maybe because it's difficult and, you know, this is still a skill set I'm developing, but, you know, go where the resistance flows. You know, it's easy to check email. It's hard to write a paper. You know, thinking about it on a broader macro scale too, it's just like, it's a bad trade-off. I mean, you think about it, like 8 hours a day, you sleep for 8 hours, so you get 8 hours of free time. But part of those are probably logistics of getting ready and going to work. So really, like, I don't know, we'll call it 1 hour to get ready. Well, actually, we'll call it 1.5 hours to get ready, and then at least a half hour of transit in home. So that's 2 hours, so it's 10 hours. So then you get actually 6 hours a day. Oh man. It's so fucked. And then, you know, you do that for 20 years. So you get, MJ DeMarco talks about this in one of his books, which, I don't know, like, I think he's a very brilliant entrepreneur in the way he thinks, but what do I know? Because I'm not a successful entrepreneur yet. But anyways, a lot of the stuff resonated with me that he said, you know, you're trading 2 for 5, and then like you're like 2 days of freedom for 5 days of work, which is a terrible trade. It's like, if I give you, it's like I give you $5 and you give me 2 back, is how he said it, which I thought was really good. But then he also, it talks about like, you know, you work for 20 so you can enjoy 20 if you're lucky. But, you know, your latter years of 60 to 80 are not as enjoyable as 40 to 60 because you're old. So again, like, we have this like micro bullshit scale, 8 hours a day, you know, 5 days a week, 20, 30 years. And obviously you need to make a living. That's important. And obviously some people need to have jobs. Like, I'm not, if you like having a job, great. I'm not here to shit on that. For me, it's just, I fucking hate it. And again, maybe I'm just a privileged like piece of shit. I don't know. But like the fact that, you know, you need to sit there for 8 hours, like, drives me fucking crazy. But I mean, again, thinking about that, like, how much time are you spending doing things that don't make sense because it's what we're supposed to do? And I think about that because no one questions the script. It's just like we go on it and like, this is how it works because this is just the way it is. And you know, I don't know. I didn't come in this. I think, listen, I think doing meaningful work is very important. I do not think it's important for institutions of authority to prescribe how we need to do that work, how much of it we need to do, even though, like, how much we need to sit there. But hey, I could be wrong.